Good evening and welcome to New Directors. My name's Gavin Smith. I'm a member of the selection committee for the festival. And I'm glad to see a capacity crowd here tonight for a film that I think will have you riveted to your seats. And a film that's pretty much ripped from the headlines. I mean, you know, you see in the schedule a film called Hijacking. You're there. I mean, it's not really a big surprise that there's so many of you here, and I'm very glad. Tobias Lindholm, the director of this film, this is his second film, although technically it's his first, because his first film he co-directed with Michael Noor. It was a film called R. It was a prison movie set in Denmark. So I can't decide whether this is his first film or his second film. I'll let him decide. He is here, and he'll be taking questions afterwards, and I'll be posing some of them, and then hopefully you'll have many questions to ask. But please give a warm welcome to, I'm blanking on his name, Tobias Lindholm.
Hello, I'm very proud that everybody's here. I think it's my second film. So welcome to my second film. I'm looking so much forward to talk to everybody afterwards. And just want to say enjoy the ride, and I'll talk to you afterwards. Yeah, take care.
Now, there've been, I don't know how many cases of piracy of this kind in the last 5 to 10 years. But I'm assuming that you immersed yourself in many different incidents and had a great deal of material to draw upon. Is the story that you tell that we saw tonight, is it a composite of a number of different things and a number of different elements, or was there one particular incident that of piracy that particularly you focused on?
It's a combination of a lot of different hijackings. There's been so many, and there still are so many sailors caught in the Indian Ocean. We had the last numbers I looked at 2 years ago. We had 1,200 sailors hijacked there, just for 1 year. Now you cannot imagine, like, 1,200 passengers on airplanes stuck in a desert somewhere without anybody doing anything. But it's such a complex area. In this case, it's a Danish-owned ship, but they sail under Panama flag. And the nationalities are 7 or 8 different nations. So who's responsible for this? And it ends on the table of the CEOs of these companies. And that interested me a lot, so I started to research. And of course, there was especially one case, a Danish ship got hijacked in 2007, and it was only Russian crew members. But doing this film, we sent out a press release that I wanted to do it. And then a guy called me, and he said, I can help you. I don't want to tell you my name, but I can help you with this film. And I was like, oh, that's pretty James Bondish. But let's meet up. And we met up, and it turned out to be Gary Skjoldmose, who plays Connor Julian here in the film The Negotiator. And he's a real negotiator. That's his living. And he would meet me and talk about his experience with this area. And I asked him to come back the same night, and we would film him. And we would just pretend that Nordisk Film, our production company, is a shipping company, and just take us through the drill. What would happen if we had a ship hijacked? And he would lecture us for 4 hours about what to do now. We were filming. I just called him right away. I said, "You want a part?" Because I really liked him. But he opened the world of shipping companies up for me, and took me around the world to meet different CEOs that had been in these situations. And we read a lot of transcripted negotiations between companies and pirates. So it is a big combination of all the cases that I have studied during 2 years of research.
Did you have contact with crewmen that had been in this situation?
Yeah, definitely. We had the Danes that I could get my hands on. I would talk to, and then what happened was that I have a pretty crazy producer, and when I talked about this, he said, well, then we need to go down to Africa and rent a boat and get out there. And I decided not to tell my wife or my mother. And then Then we did. We went to Mombasa and we found 3 different ships owned by an Indian company, and one of them, Rozen, that we ended up shooting is Danish built. So that was kind of fun. But the great thing about it and terrible thing about it was that ship had been hijacked just 2 years before, and the crew members had been hostages. Now these are the guys who are the colored guys kept down below in this film. These guys are real life hostages. They have been in the situation. So they could tell us details about, not overall details about hijackings, but details about the life as a hostage on this ship. Exactly where would the pirates be, what would happen, where would we slaughter the goat, what would we do when we went out on deck and stuff like that. So they helped us a lot and I changed everything in the script meeting them. I had a lot of fantasies about life as a hostage, and then they told me another story, so we wrote that down instead.
Did you also have contact with CEOs of any of these companies who'd been involved in these negotiations? And, I mean, even more to the point, did you ever have any contact with anyone involved with piracy?
We had the company Clipper Group. It's a Danish group who had a ship hijacked, the one I talked about with the Russian crew. And they opened up the door, so actually what we did was we shot the whole office thing in their offices, and they built up the situation room, as it were, when they were negotiating for CEC Future. So basically, we shot in their office spaces, and the CEO, I always, by the monitor, I had an extra set of headphones, so he once in a while would come down and sit for an hour and watch the film, and he would say, well, I would do a little slightly different, and he would tell me the difference, and then we would change, because he was the expert. So, and him and Søren, the main character here, being the CEO, worked a lot together. Søren started with him and followed his everyday life, trying to copy his behavior. It's very difficult to get in contact with the pirates. Even though I tried, naive, on the internet to get into some Somali chat rooms. It didn't help me. But I got in contact with a guy who, a Somali guy living in Denmark, and his cousin is a pirate, and he made a documentary about that. So I talked to him, and I had questions, and he would call his cousin in Somalia, and in that way I would get the response from that.
You're very resourceful. We have the impression that it's kind of unorthodox for the CEO in this particular film to actually personally handle the negotiations, and my sense was that he did this out of a certain arrogance, that he saw himself as being a tough negotiator and a great deal maker, and that he went into this with a sort of a confidence that this would be just like any other negotiation. Is that common, or generally is there an intermediary brought in who handles who kind of depersonalizes the transactions?
Both happens, and I mean, the reason we chose that was that the cases I've studied where the CEO takes it on himself always goes wrong. And they always goes in with the idea of, I can handle this, and I care too much about my ship and my crew, so I need to do this myself. If a mistake should happen, I want to be responsible for that. I don't want to blame somebody else if my crew member dies. I want to take this on. And these guys always end up in a long conflicts of negotiation, because they're not educated for this. I mean, they're educated for moving stuff around the world, coffee and oil and stuff like that, not negotiating about human lives. And the pressure of families, press, politicians in a small country like Denmark. I mean, we're a small country, but the main income in Denmark is the commercial fleet. Every family has a sailor there. You know, everybody is making a living off whatever gets sailed in. It's historical, and it's still like that, so it's a very local story in many ways. But that makes the CEO even more vulnerable, because everybody is putting a pressure on him. And we had cases where the CEO would take on the role as the communicator, and that will always go wrong. And as a storyteller, you need a character to make a mistake. So that was, well, not perfect, but that was good.
Now, the actor that plays Mikkel, Søren
Melling.
Søren Melling, was the experience of shooting the film as grueling as it appeared to be?
Oh, sorry, you mean the sailor, Mikkel?
Yeah, Mikkel.
Oh, that's Pilu Asbæk, the actor. Yeah, it was terrible. We're very good friends. In the previous film we did together, we killed him. So I promised not to do that in this one, but we got as close to killing him as possible. No, he's an all-in guy. I mean, we're very good friends. We did art together, which was the first film we did, and he did, and we decided to make another film. And when I told him about it, I called him and Søren Malling, who plays the CEO. I knew them from a TV show I did called Borgen. And I called Pilou and I said, do you want to be part of this? You can be the cook. At that time, I thought he should be the captain, until research told me that the cook is the one who's harassed by the pirates the most, because he can cook for them, so he's not allowed to sleep. So we made him a cook, and as soon as we made him a cook, he said, I want to gain weight. And I was, what do you mean? And he said, once you told me that we only can trust fat cooks because they like food, so he wanted to be fat. And his wife really hates me for this, because she married a movie star, and suddenly she was married to this Doug Heffernan guy who was eating 12 pizzas for breakfast and for a year and gaining 20 kilos for the part. And he lost 16 of the kilos during the shooting. He would basically stop eating as soon as we got to Africa. He just said, no, from now on, I'll only eat a cucumber and 100 grams of chicken a day. And that's it. So he lost 16 kilos during the production. And we never made a number of it and actually showing, but I believe you can see it in his eyes, and I believe that he felt it, and his shoulders. And maybe you will see it, but he really used it as a tool to be as desperate as possible. And then just to make it even worse, we would lock up the guys for hours before starting shooting, and they didn't know when we would start. So we just put them in the room and lock the door and turn off the fan, and then once in a while we had a little fly farm in a jar. And we would open it up and just let out like 500 flies, and then close it up, close the door, and let them stay there. So they didn't need to act desperately once they get out. I mean,
filmmaking Danish style.
That was already there, so, you know. And Pilou, the scene where the chief engineer needs to go to the toilet is he really needed to go to the toilet. And I denied him. I said, no, you cannot. And he had been like that for hours, knocking on the door saying, I don't want to do this. And so it was terrible to do it, yeah.
So that guy at the end that got shot didn't really get shot, did he?
That's the only fake thing in the film. No, we weren't allowed. There was some union thing about that. We couldn't do it. At a point, the script was 300 pages. So I can thank my producers and my editor for the length. No, of course, in the research, we tried to locate the most crucial points in the negotiation and tell the story around that. I mean, we shot digitally, so we could shoot as much as we wanted. And when you go to Africa and shoot like that, you don't have any union problems. So we could shoot 15 hours a day, six days a week. So we had 300 hours of material getting back. So the editor helped me find the crucial moments. The script is pretty close to the film, but basically it was about talking to sailors and CEOs and finding out what points in this process meant the most for them and what actually happened. And then I always try to look for the middle point. I believe that's the hardest part of making a script. It's right there in the middle. Everybody can write from the beginning up to a middle and build up something, and everybody can write an ending. But the fact to make some kind of point where everything will go from professional to personal, where the world will change, and that kind of point of no return is very hard to locate. And I got that when I wrote the scene with Mikkel calling his wife again, and they put a gun to his head. From that point, the whole perspective of the film changed. And then the CEO will crack just afterwards, believing he's been shot, messing up everything, going down to the wife and lying to her. So that kind of made, when I had that, I knew that we had a film, and I knew that I had the room to make them go fish as well and sing and enjoy themselves, because I knew we were we were moving towards that point. Well, we didn't have any money doing this film, so we would fly to Mombasa without any pirates, and then Mombasa, Kenya, and then we would go out in the street of Mombasa and streetcast among the Somali refugees living there. And that was a hard thing to do because there's 4 different clan leaders in the Somali communities in Mombasa and what we know of. And we had to go meet them and get their permission to cast among the young boys. And I actually made this kind of Robin Hoodish story about the pirates and to pitch for them, to make them allow the guys to be part of it. But what they told me was, please tell this story as realistic as possible. We're losing our young boys, our sons, to this piracy business. They think they will be rich. They think it's a lottery ticket. So please tell the truth about this. So it was in their interest that we actually did this film. And we got their permission to do it, and then we just cast it among the young guys who had no work to do anyway. And they showed up, 15 guys, and we just picked all of them. And then we just, started. None of them spoke too much English, and I didn't speak Somali, so we had a translator to come out, and I said, I trust in you. Please don't talk about anything else but the film. I mean, don't talk about Manchester United or that the director is stupid. Please try to stay in character during the shoot. And they did. They showed out to be pretty cool. So when we watched the 300 hours of material from the ship when I got back, and I got a Somali guy out to translate, I was really nervous that they were actually, revealing the ending or something like that in the scenes. But they didn't, so. Well, doing the research, I found out that these translators and negotiators come from very different situations. Some of them are bosses in this and finances the hijackings themselves, and then go out and negotiate it and earn a lot of money on it and invest the next, or finance the next hijacking after that. And some of them take care of 4 or 5 negotiating at the same time, sailing around from ship to ship. And they'll just tell the CEO, you won't hear from me in 2 weeks, and he'll disappear. And he'll take care of some other negotiation on another boat. And then at the same time, you have the guys who are actually on board as hostages with their families caught on shore with guns to their heads. And so we're going to kill your family if you don't bring us money back. So I couldn't tell the truth about this without trying not to tell the whole, leaving the doubt in the audience. And it helped us a lot when we decided that the audience should only know what the actors knows or what the characters know, because then we don't need to. But I believe that in the end, when he actually hits the guy who shoots the captain, he kind of tells us where he's from. He's probably not just a hostage. He's part of a big operation. But in the research, we couldn't find out. Then that Danish ship, CEC Future, that got hijacked, the guy from there turned out to be a big man in this whole financing piracy thing. And he's locked up in jail now in the US because they started to analyze his voice, and they found out that he had been negotiating for 10 different cases. And then one day he flew to Washington and got picked up in the airport, and he's in jail here now for that. Yeah, it's very accurate. Gary did all that for us, and the poster is his. And the funny thing is, I have a 3-act structure in the wall of my office at home, and it looks exactly like it. I mean, it's crazy, and that's why we put it in the film. Of course, he showed me that. I was like, wow, you can actually put it up there and point to it and tell the audience, now we're here just around the middle point, and we'll get on to point of no return, and then, and that was the irony of it. No, we had, in the first draft, I had plasma screens and satellite photos and all kind of shit. And then Gary came in and he said, well, we just have a normal phone with a piece of red tape on it. And that was beautiful for me. I loved that. So he did the room for us. He set it up as he would in any case. And then, of course, we placed the photos of the sailors where the camera would be. But we made him recreate the space at the time from when he was the negotiator of that company. Well, down to basics, we went to Africa and shot the boat first, and then afterwards we would go back. What we would do, we would shoot from day one until the end on the boat, so it would be in the right order, chronologically, and we'd do the same when we got back, so the actors could actually follow what was going on. We had a lot of non-actors, what we like to call the professionals. I mean, the real negotiator, the real guys from the shipping companies, the real sailors. They don't have the skills to understand that now we're shooting the end and the middle and the first day at the same time because we're in the kitchen, which would be the way you would order a normal production. We needed to go from day one and just take step by step there. And then for me, the key to make this film, when I was writing it, I realized that it was a film built on, structured about 9 phone calls. We open up with a phone call where the cook is calling his wife. And from then on, there will be crucial phone calls throughout the film. Now, the phone calls were made live, and that's the key for me. We did it on a satellite phone, and when we called somebody from the ship, we would call them for real, and we'll just tap the line. So we never redid it in the sound editing. This is all live. So Søren, the CEO, would be in his kitchen, probably naked, drinking coffee. And we would call him. And I would ask Pilun not to say the number that was in the script, but change it. So they never knew what kind of call would come in. They just knew that the phone would ring soon. But all the echoes, all the mistakes, all the breakups, all that noise is what defines a phone call in reality. And to build the tension, we needed to make real phone calls. So we did that. So the actors were always on the other end of the phone, and we never did it again in sound editing. We did the same thing calling from Denmark, and then we just called the satellite phone and placed it another place in Copenhagen. And the actors would meet up in some office space somewhere and then pick up the phone. And we always changed what they would say, so nobody knew what kind of number would come up. And Gary, who's the negotiator, were there like, he's a professional, so it was like, just another day at another job. So no matter what number came in, he had an idea about what to say. So I didn't write any lines for him. He would just be on his job, telling the actors what to do. And then we shot, we had takes for, the longest take we had was 2 hours and 15 minutes, waiting for a phone call. And some mistakes were around that. I don't know what happened, but our satellite phone broke. So the phone never rang. And I just said, well, let's just keep on filming. And they had so much coffee in there. And they were like, going crazy on caffeine. And finally the phone would ring. And then the guy who calls them tells them a totally different number that's in the script. And he just go crazy and started to say, don't call me a pirate anymore, rah, 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 rah. It's that scene. And I believe that built the tension, that it's a real phone call. You never question the reality of this. And that will keep the tension up in my perspective. And then the fact that we would not leave the room. We made one rule with me and the DP, my photographer, Magnus. He bears a lot of responsibility and has a lot of credit in a film like this because his choices are the film in many ways. But we made one rule that we said that the camera can never leave the character, but the character can leave the camera, which is an old documentary way of making a film. You make an agreement between a camera and a man and say, we can interview you, and the camera will not just start to tell about what happens in the room, it will stay on him. But as soon as that character suddenly gets up and leaves, the camera will be confused just for a second. What's going on here? And you can feel that. And if we don't edit out that, but keep that in the film, we will feel the tension of the camera. That was the idea anyway.